Some nights, the sound of a doorbell means more than a visitor. It's the sound of something waiting, watching, right outside. A simple notification on your phone becomes a window into fear. Because once you see what's standing at your front door, you can't unsee it. Tonight, we'll uncover 3 real doorbell camera recordings, each one capturing the exact moment an ordinary home became a nightmare. Keep your doors locked, because these are the nights that remind us. Some visitors don't come to be let in, they come to never leave. It was November 22nd, 2019, a cold and quiet Friday night in Harriet Creek Ranch, a suburban neighborhood in North Texas. Families were winding down for the weekend, porch lights on, dinner dishes drying in sinks, the hum of distant traffic fading under a dark sky. At 8:03 p.m., one particular home's doorbell camera came to life. A small figure appeared in the glow of the porch light. It was a young girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, clutching a flashlight that shook in her trembling hands. Her hair was messy, her jacket oversized, her breathing quick and uneven. She looked over her shoulder again and again, as if someone or something was behind her. Then, softly, at first, she spoke. "Help. Please." Her voice was so faint it almost blended with the wind. But as seconds passed and no one came, she grew desperate. "Please, help me." She began knocking harder, her flashlight flickering across the door and camera lens. But the house she had chosen, by sheer bad luck, was empty. The homeowners were out of town on vacation. Inside, the rooms were dark. No footsteps came. No voices answered. Only the quiet creak of wood and the sound of her own panic. She kept glancing behind her, squinting toward the street. The camera's limited angle couldn't show what she saw, but every time she looked, her fear seemed to grow. Her knocking turned into pounding, her breathing quickened. And then, after one last desperate plea, she turned and ran off into the night, disappearing beyond the edge of the camera's view. The footage stayed unnoticed for nearly 2 days. When the family returned home on Sunday and checked their system, they saw the alert, a small motion detection clip labeled 8:03 p.m. They opened it, and what they saw left them cold. A terrified child, alone, begging for help at their door. They called the Denton County Sheriff's Office, who canvassed the area, showing neighbors the footage, but no one recognized her. She didn't match any local missing person reports. Her clothes weren't school uniforms from nearby districts. She was a complete mystery. When the footage went online, the internet exploded with theories. Some claimed it was a setup, a criminal tactic where thieves send a frightened child to lure someone to the door, then ambush them when they open it. Others said her fear looked too real, her voice cracked, her hands shook, her eyes darted in pure panic. One woman online swore she saw a shadow move behind her just before the girl ran off, but others thought it was just the flashlight beam. Then came a darker, more heartbreaking theory. A few users compared the clip to the case of Serenity Dennard, a 9-year-old girl who vanished earlier that year in South Dakota after escaping from a children's treatment center. Serenity had a history of running away and had been missing since February 3rd, 2019, 9 months before the Texas footage. The resemblance between the two was haunting. Same height, similar hair. Could Serenity have been taken across state lines? Had she somehow escaped her captor and found the courage to beg for help? Investigators reached out to Serenity's family, who viewed the clip and ultimately said they didn't believe it was her, but that didn't stop the rumors. To this day, no one knows who that little girl was. She was never reported missing. No relatives ever came forward. And no other footage from nearby homes showed where she went after she fled. 6 years later, the mystery remains frozen in that 30-second clip, a child's voice whispering through the cold November air, pleading for help from a house that could not answer. Sometimes, when people watch the video online, they claim to hear something else, a faint sound behind her words, like footsteps crunching on gravel, or a man's voice calling softly from the dark. Maybe it's just imagination. Or maybe the reason she was so afraid is still out there. On July 31st, 2022, 22-year-old Allison Duckrow returned home from breakfast with her mom in Sydney, Ohio. Just as they parked, an unfamiliar car pulled into the driveway. It was her ex-boyfriend, James, someone she hadn't spoken to in over a year and a half. The night before, he'd left a disturbing voicemail. "Hi, it's James. I just wanted to talk. Maybe hear from you. It'd be nice. Please call me back." She never replied. Now, he was at her door. The doorbell camera showed him pacing on the porch, knocking softly at first, then harder. He circled the house, tried the windows, came back again. Allison stayed silent, watching every second through the camera feed. When he started forcing the door, her father acted and used his firearm in self-defense. Police arrived minutes later to find James on the ground. The footage was played in court. Every frame, every sound proved how quickly obsession turns to violence. The father was found not guilty. The camera had captured the truth. A reminder that sometimes technology doesn't just record the horror, it saves lives. Halloween night, Alexandria, Virginia. A family was watching TV when their doorbell rang at 10 p.m. On the screen appeared 3 masked figures standing completely still. The homeowner's daughter, Shayla, assumed it was a prank. She smiled and said, "Happy Halloween." But the figures didn't move. Then the knocking started. Soft, then louder, then furious. "Open the door!" one of them shouted. When no one did, they began shaking the doorknob, pounding on the glass. The family ran upstairs, whispering, "Call the police." But the knocking followed them. The intruders moved to the backyard, broke through a wooden fence, slashed a screen, and screamed, "It's either you come out, or we're coming in." The ordeal lasted nearly 10 minutes. By the time police arrived, the masked strangers had vanished, leaving splintered wood, broken locks, and a family too afraid to sleep. Investigators called it attempted burglary and criminal threats. But for those who lived it, it was something much worse. A real-life nightmare that knocked first. Every night, millions of cameras quietly record our lives, keeping watch, keeping proof, but not always keeping us safe. They've caught stalkers, intruders, and things no one can explain. But for every mystery solved, another begins. Because behind each knock, each flicker of movement, someone or something is standing just beyond the lens. If tonight's stories made you glance at your door, you're not alone. Make sure it's locked. And if your doorbell rings when you're not expecting anyone, maybe don't answer.